Welcome back, fellow Wi-Fi enthusiasts, to another episode of the GrumpySysAdmin. Today we're diving deep into the world of Wi-Fi, decoding the mysteries of frequencies, interference, and everything in between. So grab your coffee, sit back, and prepare for some Wi-Fi enlightenment. So what is Wi-Fi? Quite simply put, Wi-Fi is a wired network without the wires. It is a way of connecting all the devices in your home together to share resources, to be able to get to the internet without all those pesky wires that people seem to hate. Before I go any farther, let's go over a little bit what networking is so that we can have a better understanding of what actually is going on here. Networking is basically the simple act of making a bunch of devices connect to each other over a common media. Most adults have seen networking for years in offices, workplaces, hospitals, all over the place by way of actual cables. Wi-Fi basically replaced all those cables with a bunch of radio frequencies and channels. Another important thing that we want to make sure we understand here is that wireless is what is known as a shared medium. Basically what that means is when you're using wireless, it's not only you that's using that network. It's you and whoever else around you is also using either those same frequencies or channels. Let me put a little chart up so that I can explain. As you can see in the chart, I'm not the only one on this wireless network. If you look, you can see there are a lot of other networks that are sharing the same space as I am. Yeah, makes me a little bit grumpy. Why is this important? Well, because as I was saying before, every other network that is using the same airspace or the same frequency ranges and channels that I'm using has the potential to cause interference. You may ask, if there's all this interference, why am I actually able to use my Wi-Fi at all? And that's a very good question. You can use the same spectrums depending on the amount of signal strength and the distance you are from your access point. The closer you are to your access point and the less interference you get, the better your connection is. This is also why not every Wi-Fi signal is the same as every other Wi-Fi signal. You may have full bars on your Wi-Fi antenna. You may think your signal is absolutely great. The fact of the matter is, because of these factors, it may not. And as you can tell by the chart, I might have some Wi-Fi problems. Another thing you may have noticed, on the bottom of that chart are two sections. One called 2.4 gigahertz, the other called 5 gigahertz. And why does that matter? Because like other things in the past, Wi-Fi has two different flavors of it. I don't want to say the good and the bad, or the good and the ugly, but there are two different standards that evolved over time. They evolved for different reasons, and each has their positives and each has their negatives. Now you can think of Wi-Fi kind of like a highway that has two different lanes to it, each with their own quirk and benefits. In the 2.4 gigahertz lane, it's like driving during rush hour. You get lots of traffic jams caused by baby monitors, microwave ovens, and that pesky neighbor who insists on using their ancient cordless phone. It gets crowded, which leads to slower network speeds and reduced capacity for your data. But in the 5 gigahertz lane, it's a completely different story. Picture yourself on the open road, cruising down an open highway, with fewer interference sources and faster speeds. It's like finding that secret shortcut during your morning commute. And I'll bet you're asking yourself, why would there be two different frequency ranges? Why wouldn't you just have one and make one good one? Well, let me tell you a little story. When Wi-Fi was first developed, there were two different standards. One is the 2.4 gigahertz, the other is the 5 gigahertz. They're also known by these letter designations, 802.11a and b. What was the difference between the two of them? Well, technologically, one was better than the other. One was faster than the other. But the one that was better and faster also was more expensive to produce. And let's be honest, people can be quite cheap. Because of this, the one that was cheaper to produce is the one that sold more of. So back when Wi-Fi was first becoming popular, even though one technology was better and faster, the other was cheaper to produce. And since people are who they are, the cheaper Wi-Fi solution, even with its issues, became the de facto standard and the most popular or winner in the battle for Wi-Fi. Why am I explaining all this to you? In order to understand what you're using a little bit better and to have a better idea of what the frequency ranges are, why they're there, and kind of what they represent, you need to know how this stuff works just a little bit under the hood. Once you understand the differences between the frequency ranges and why each is better or worse, you can make a judgment on which set of frequency works best for your environment or situation. Now let's talk about channel selection. Just like picking the right radio station when you're cruising down the road is important, choosing the best Wi-Fi channel is critical for the best performance. Let's zoom in a little bit on those frequency ranges. If you look at the clip that I put up now, you can see the 2.4 gigahertz band. This happens to be the more popular Wi-Fi band. This is the one that won that standards fight back in the day. You can see that there are a lot of networks showing up there. This could definitely make me grumpy. In the 2.4 gigahertz spectrum, even though it's defined as having 11 separate channels, you really have only 3 that can be used concurrently without interfering with each other. This is because by looking at this chart, you can see that no matter which channel you're on, you're kind of hanging off each side of whatever that channel is. Think of that as kind of the center point, and that you're going to hang over about 2.5 channels on either side. The end result? If you're on a channel and your neighbor's on a close enough channel, you're definitely going to interfere with each other. Or even worse, if you're on one channel and someone's on a non-standard channel, or not 1, 6, or 11, as in this example we can see that the GrumpySysAdmin is on channel 11, but I have a bunch of neighbors that are on channels 8, 9, 10, 5, 6, and all those different lines crossing with each other is definitely causing interference. So how can you deal with this? Well, you can do one of a couple of things. Either use a tool like INSSIDer. I'll provide a link below for that. This is a free tool that you can download and use on your home network. It will help show you what networks are around you, what could possibly be interfering. You can always try to pick a clean channel. Find one where nobody else is talking and set your wireless device to use that particular channel. Now, many wireless devices will attempt to find a clean channel or a channel that has the least amount of interference. But depending on how much interference is occurring in your neighborhood or your environment, the device may not be able to find one that's a really good choice. So you might have to look yourself and pick one that has, if not no interference, the least amount of interference possible. Another method for dealing with highly interfered networks would be to use the other spectrum. Now, if we take a look at the other spectrum, the other standard, the 5 gigahertz range, you can see that there are quite a few more channels. And one other significant difference that's not represented well in these charts is that in the 5 gigahertz range, the channels are actually much wider. There's more bandwidth available in each channel than in the 2.4 gigahertz spectrum. As a result, typically with the 5 gigahertz range, your odds of finding a clean channel that nobody's interfering with usually are pretty good. As you can see in the chart, I'm actually pretty happy in the 5 gigahertz range, as nobody else is on that channel that I'm on all the way over there to the right. So that's the one I set my devices to use, so I can be there all by my lonesome and not be grumpy at all. Now, there are some other factors that you need to take into account when you're trying to figure out if you're going to use the 2.4 or the 5 gigahertz ranges. The other thing you need to look at is how much infrastructure or stuff that the signal's going to have to go through. For example, if you have a couple of pieces of sheetrock, like a couple of walls in between two rooms, both solutions are going to pass through it pretty easily. But if you have one wall that has, say, some concrete board, like a bathroom, your wireless signal is going to have a harder time penetrating that. In addition, the 2.4 gigahertz or the older standard will actually go through infrastructure better than 5 gigahertz. So although the higher number is faster, the lower number has a better chance of getting through infrastructure. So in areas where you need to go through a lot of walls or a lot of stuff, you kind of may have to use the slower solution in order for the signal to get there. Or you can use some other things to extend the range, but that's for another video. Another thing I wanted to mention too is it's more than just interference from your neighbors that you have to be careful of. Wi-Fi is what's known as a shared medium. What does that mean? Basically, you kind of have to think of it as your Wi-Fi network is a large auditorium that you're in, and someone's on the other side of the auditorium that you want to talk to. With nobody else in the room, you can shout at each other across the auditorium, hear each other, and understand the conversation just fine. The problem becomes is if you put another 20 people in that room, and they're all trying to talk to each other on opposite sides of the auditorium all at the same time, you're very quickly going to find out that you can't hear each other, or you can hear little bits and pieces of each other, and your ability to actually communicate back and forth is going to be reduced dramatically just from the extra noise in the environment. Wi-Fi kind of functions the same way. This is why if you're at home during the day, say doing work or whatnot, and you're on your wireless devices and you're streaming TV, a movie, music, and it works great, and here come the kids, and all of a sudden after 3 o'clock in the afternoon the kids hop onto the Xbox, the PlayStation, YouTube, different videos on their tablets, doing homework, and all of a sudden your wireless experience gets awful. It's because those kids are using that same shared medium and causing all sorts of interference. This is all the more reason why it's important to make sure that you've designed your wireless network to be appropriate for the amount of people and devices that are going to be communicating on it. If you've taken into account the amount of bandwidth you're going to need for the amount of devices you're going to have, your wireless will work just fine. So while we're on the subject of your wireless network slowing down or interference, let's cover a few more devices that can actually be causing you problems that you may not even know of. These devices are ones that happen to either operate in that same frequency range or a harmonic of that frequency range. These devices could be microwave ovens, cell phones, Bluetooth devices, especially really old cordless phones. They use that same 2.4 gigahertz range. Bear in mind also that it's not just the devices that you may have in your home. If you're in an apartment complex or you have close neighbors, it certainly could be devices that are in the neighborhood. So by strategically selecting the right channel and placing your access points wisely, you can enjoy a smooth, uninterrupted Wi-Fi experience. So my fellow streamers, here's a pro tip. When streaming bandwidth-intensive content, hop onto the 5 gigahertz lane for faster speeds and smoother streaming. Trust me, your binge-watching sessions will thank you. Remember, when it comes to Wi-Fi, knowledge is power. So next time you hear someone grumbling about their sluggish connection, enlighten them with your newfound wisdom. Share this video and help spread the word on the Wi-Fi revolution. Well folks, that wraps up today's Wi-Fi journey with the GrumpySysAdmin. We've learned about 2 frequency ranges, the importance of channel selection, how to battle interference, and even how to optimize streaming. If you have any questions from today's video, please feel free to post them in the comments and I will answer them in an upcoming video. Until next time, stay grumpy, stay geeky, and may your Wi-Fi signal be forever strong. This is the GrumpySysAdmin signing off.